This is a brief introduction to Excel, how to navigate through Excel, select blocks, format cells, enter equations into cells, and copy equations. All of these things that you need to use to basically manipulate large sets of data, perform analysis, particularly in relation to engineering. Okay, so I have a blank workbook that I can select. You can also select some of these other options that appear when you open up Excel. If it's the first time you've been to Excel, go ahead and select the Welcome to Excel and go through that. I'm going to go ahead and select just the blank workbook. I'm not going to select any of these other templates. This is going to be a workbook. Okay, now the window, this is what I refer to as a workbook, and then within that workbook we have worksheets. Okay, so I'm just going to rename this by double clicking here, my worksheet, and you'll see that as I type, the letters and characters that I type are going to appear down here on the right. Now that's going to be particularly important later when I use shortcut keys or other things that to navigate around Excel. Now when I click here, okay, on the plus sign, it's going to create a new worksheet for me. Okay, so this is a second worksheet. Now I'm not going to use that. I'm going to go back to my other one, okay, my other worksheet there, and then I have, these are workbook, worksheets, and these are cells within that workbook. Okay, now also the other thing is, if I select something, that's also called an active cell. Okay, so that's the active cell that I have. Any formula that you see is going to, in the formula bar, is going to be associated with the cell that is currently the active cell. Okay, now if I want to maneuver around, I can use, for example, an up arrow, down, left, right, to navigate around with my arrow keys. I can also click on a cell as well, and it'll take me there. I can also use the F5 key. Okay, now the F5 key is kind of like Battleship. Okay, if you've ever played that. D3, hit. Okay, so it went to D3 by using the F5 key. Now you can also use the Control and arrow key. So I'm going to hold down the Control key and do a left arrow, Control key up arrow, Control key right arrow, then back, left, and down. Okay, so you see kind of where it goes to the end of that data. Now, in this case, there's no data there. And let me just go ahead and put in a little bit of data. I'm just going to use a random number generator here. Okay, and then I'm going to copy this. Okay, and then hold the Shift key and paste that everywhere. I just created a block of random numbers, for example. Okay, now I can navigate around this with the arrow. I can also hold the Control and do a right, and it takes me to the end. Control down takes me to the bottom, left, right. Okay, so I can navigate around, particularly if I have a lot of data. I don't want to have to hold down the down or the up key. It might take me a long time to get to where I need to go. Okay, now I can also select ranges of cells, okay, by clicking and holding that click and then dragging, okay, and that selects a whole range. I can cut with Control X and then paste somewhere else, for example, paste out, and manipulate my data that way. Okay, now let's say I want to change the format of those cells. For example, highlight particular data or change the color of the font. Okay, I can do that with these buttons up here in the top. Now, if you don't want to see this, you can go ahead and just make that go away with that arrow, and if you want to bring it back, then you actually have to, when you select something, okay, then just repin it back there. Okay, so if you ever lose that top bar, you can select the different menu items. Okay, so you can browse through these and look at the different items that are there under the Excel menus. Okay, so if you want to enter a formula into a cell, now we've covered the basic navigation, and now we want to enter a formula. I already showed you the random 1. But let's say I just want to add up all of the numbers that are in this particular row, this block of this row. I might do equals, and I type my formula name. Okay, now this one's going to be a summation, and then I'm going to put inside these brackets all of the numbers that I want. So I can scroll over to the left, and it's going to show me, J3. I'm going to hold down the Shift key, for example, and then scroll to the left, and then that's going to give me a summation. I put an end parenthesis on it and push enter. Okay, now that gave me the sum of all the numbers that were in that range that I selected. Okay, and there's another way to enter in formulas. If I have an active cell right here, and then I select the insert function, okay, then I can look for a particular function. I got lucky because it's on the very top there, but you can scroll down through and look at some of the common functions that are there. Or let's say you didn't find it at first glance, then you can type in, I want to take the summation of something, and click enter. Okay, and then it gives you the range that you might want to go through. So it's kind of a wizard here, taking you through the different how to enter these things in, and you can click enter and then OK. Okay, so there's my summation. It built my formula for me. Especially if I don't know a formula name, a function name, then I can use that. To help me out. Okay, so that is with the formulas. Also, the other thing to keep in mind is when you build formulas. Okay, so I'm just going to take a couple of these numbers here. I'm going to do multiplied by the next one over plus the next one. So in this case, let's say I wanted to add these two numbers first and then multiply those two numbers. I have to put parentheses there, just like you do on a calculator. Okay, and then the other thing to keep in mind is that the colors here, they'll show up as blue or orange, or in this case purple. And you can also change those cells around. You can just drag it. Let's say I wanted to actually add H5 and J7 together and then multiply by G5. You can drag that over and change the location of where it's taking the values from. Okay, so it'll adjust that for you. Okay, now let's go ahead and just copy. Let's talk about copying on these equations. Let's say I wanted to copy the sum, okay, the summation that I had here. I didn't want to type in equal sum of all those numbers. If I copy here and then copy here, you'll see that this one, let me open that up, is just a summation of the next one down. So it was smart enough to know that it needed to shift all of the values I wanted to sum up down one row as I drag that down. Okay, then the other thing I can do is just grab this bottom right little box there and drag that down, and then it will fill in the sum. Now you notice that as I'm filling it down, that the numbers are changing. It's because I have a random number generator in there. Let me go ahead and just get those to be fixed numbers for a little bit just by copying them. Okay, so select that range, and then maybe select right down here, and I'm going to then paste, but I want to do a paste just the values. I don't want to paste the formulas. So that gets rid of the formulas. And you can see it froze the values there because now it's no longer a random number generator. It's just a number now. Whereas every time I touch this workbook, these random numbers are being regenerated. Okay, so if I want to get rid of the formulas, okay, and just have these numbers there. Now in this case, the summation has changed. So let me because I have different numbers there. Okay, so I'm just going to add in the summation and then fill down with my formulas, and then let's say I want to copy this somewhere else, okay, then I can do then paste and then do values. Okay, so the values showed up there and they won't change. They're no longer a formula. Okay, so now let's go and do an exercise with this. Back in school, you may have learned the times tables, for example. Let's go ahead and just generate a times table in Excel. So what I want you to do is just go ahead and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, on up to let's go ahead and do 12. Okay, so and then what we want to do is have a times table, okay, like that, where this one is a multiplication of those two numbers and so on. So that would be 12, and we want to build this times table, okay, using Excel. So let's go back to if you're on the video, go ahead and push pause and see if you can do it, and then we will start in just right after you click pause if you push play again. Okay, so what I'm going to do is go over to sheet 2. I'm just going to create a new blank worksheet, or you can do that with the plus sign, or if you just want to delete your old one, you're welcome to do that. What I'm going to do is give myself just a little bit of room here, and 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I only needed to do a couple of these, and then if I then drag this little square down, it's going to fill in for me. Let's just go up to 12 in this case. Okay, and then in this case, let's do 1, 2, 3, okay, 4. And I only need to do 1 and 2. It'll be smart enough to know how much to increment them. Okay, so now I have this one equals that C3, that same row, and then this same column. Okay, now if I were to go through, let's see, let me go ahead and highlight the ones that I know are going to be my the numbers I use to multiply. Okay, so I'm just going to highlight those with some different colors here, and then I'd have to enter in all of the formulas, which is going to be an extremely long process here of going through them all. So what I want to do now is show you how to fix some of the references as you drag equations down. Okay, so I have these two multiplied by each other, and then what I'm going to do is when I enter this in, I can either hit F4, okay, and that's going to put some dollar signs there. And what that's going to do is it's going to fix the value of C and 3 even if I drag it. Okay, so it's going to keep them there. I don't want to fix the value, I just want to fix the value of C but not of 3. So I hit F4 again. Okay, it's going to cycle through which one it puts the dollar sign on. So I want to leave that at C3 there. Okay, and then I'm going to come over here to D2. I'm going to hit the F4 key, or I can just add the dollar signs myself. In this case, I want to keep 2 constant, okay, as I drag them. So what I'm going to do now is just go ahead and drag this one over. Okay, drag it over, and you'll see that it multiplied the correct values together there. In that case, C3 times N2. And then what I want to do is go ahead and select this whole row, okay, and then go ahead and fill down on this. Okay, and there I have my times table. So what I did is I just had a fixed value of C and a fixed, for the column ones, a fixed row of 2. Okay, and then when I dragged it down, it filled in the equations for me. Okay, so that is copying equations. I just want to show one more thing on Excel just for this introduction. I'm going to add a new worksheet here. Okay, let me see if I can get a new worksheet. Oh, it's on a cell there. Okay, now if I add a new worksheet, the other thing I can do is, let's say I have let's say alpha, beta, and then gamma. Okay, so 3 variables that I want to multiply together, and I've given this a value of 1, 2, and 3. Well, you can imagine that, let's say my expression here, the result is going to be equal to, alpha times, let me go to beta to the gamma power. Okay, so there's my result. You can imagine that if you have particular values like alpha, beta, gamma, sometimes it's easier to refer to them by names versus a C2, C3, C4. So what you can also do is, in alpha, you can just rename this cell, the value, to alpha, let's say. Okay, and then when I come down here to my equation, I can have another equation now, result 2, okay, and then I'm just going to say that equals alpha. Okay, so it knew that it was alpha is C2. I renamed that cell. Okay, and then let me go ahead and rename the other ones as well. Okay, so I'm just going to, instead of C3, I'm going to name that as beta, and then this one as gamma. Okay, so then I can do equals alpha times beta to the gamma. Okay, so it also knew that those variables were there, and it formed my expression for me and calculated that. Okay, so this concludes the basic introduction to Excel. You have a workbook, worksheets, cells, active cells. You can maneuver around Excel. Don't forget the control keys to be able to go to the end of a data set or the end of a row or column with the up or down keys, holding the control and then the arrow keys. Then also shift, that allows you to select a region, and so you can do control, shift, and then arrow keys to select big blocks of data. Okay, now the other thing that we reviewed is also formatting cells, highlighting, changing the appearance of them, and also entering formulas into cells, how to look up functions and formulas. And then we also copied equations. Don't forget the $sign that fixes either a row or a column, and you can use F4 to toggle between the different options. And then finally you can name cells, and naming cells allows you to maybe make a formula or equation that's just a little bit more readable.